Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're heading somewhere pretty remote, high-altitude forests in northeast Myanmar, and also the Gaoligongshan Mountains bordering China.
That's right.
Our mission is to really understand the world of the Myanmar Snub-Nosed monkey, Rhinopithecus strykeri, that's the scientific name. A primate discovered, well, remarkably recently, actually, and it's already facing a really tough fight for survival.
It really is.
So we'll be digging into conservation reports, scientific studies, news articles, basically trying to get to grips with this endangered species and, what's being done.
Okay,
let's unpack this.
well, it's quite something that science only formally described it in 2010.
Yeah.
But the local people, they knew about it all along.
Right.
They even had this wonderful name, Meiwa, means monkey with an upturned face.
Ah.
And that local knowledge was actually crucial. It alerted scientists who were initially looking for something else entirely, hulak gibbons.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, stories from local hunters pointed them towards this unique monkey.
And that upturned nose, the main woe, it's not just like a visual thing, is it? It actually affects them.
It absolutely does. Rainwater apparently gets in really easily, makes them sneeze.
Oh, wow.
And kind of tragically, hunters apparently used to listen for those sneezes in the rain to find them.
Gosh, yeah. And visually, what do they look like beyond the nose?
They're quite striking, mostly black fur, but these really distinctive tufty white ears.
Okay.
And a pinkish hairless face, a very noticeable white sort of mustache and beard.
Right, I've seen pictures.
And a white patch around the base of the tail, the perineal region. Limbs are black, maybe a bit blackish brown on the inner sides.
And getting that first picture was hard work, sounds like. Camera trap in 2012.
Exactly. And the first actual footage didn't come out until 2014.
Yeah.
They are definitely masters of staying hidden.
Which, makes studying them and protecting them even harder, I imagine.
Absolutely. And that elusiveness ties into the numbers. When they were first discovered, the estimate was incredibly low, somewhere between 260 and 330 individuals.
That few, wow.
Yeah, which immediately landed them in the critically endangered category. They live in these small, kind of fragmented groups.
And in a very specific place.
Very specific, limited range in the eastern Himalayas. Northeastern Kachin State, Myanmar, high altitudes like 1,700 to 3,200 meters.
It's almost hard to picture such a restricted world. And then, wasn't there another group found?
Yes, exactly. A second, even smaller population, maybe 50 to 100 monkeys, just over the border in China.
Yeah.
In the Gaoligongshan Mountain Natural Reserve.
Okay, so they cross the border. That definitely adds another layer of complexity for conservation, right?
It certainly does. Transboundary species always present unique challenges. But what's particularly interesting is some more recent research.
Oh, yeah.
Done between 2019 and 2021 in the Myanmar region, right on that border. It kind of adjusted our view a bit.
How so?
Well, earlier thinking suggested maybe multiple groups moving back and forth. This newer research pinpointed just one larger cross-border group, estimated at about 155 to 160 individuals. And encouragingly, the data suggested this particular group might actually be growing.
Now that is a bright spot. That's really good news.
It is. Definitely a glimmer of hope.
But even with that potential growth, if you add up all the known groups, we're still talking maybe fewer than 400 monkeys total, spread across maybe 5 groups.
That's likely the ballpark, yes.
Yeah.
Fewer than 400 minimum. It really underscores just how fragile their existence is.
Absolutely. So what about their homes, these high-altitude forests?
Right.
What are they like, and how do the monkeys behave there?
They live in high-altitude, cool, temperate rainforest and also mixed temperate forest. It gets cold, snowy in winter.
Right.
So they adapt. They spend the summer months higher up and then move down to lower altitudes when the snow comes in winter.
Makes sense. And their social lives, you mentioned groups.
Yeah, and this is quite unusual. They tend to form surprisingly large groups, sometimes over 100 individuals.
Wow, over 100. That's big for primates in that part of the world, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
And within these big bands, they have this fission fusion dynamic.
Fisher fusion, what's that?
It's basically the main group frequently splits into smaller subgroups, maybe for foraging, and then they come back together. It's like a constantly shifting social scene.
Huh, a fluid social network. Interesting. And what powers this? What do they eat up there that must influence how they live and move?
Absolutely. Their diet is quite specialized, includes some uncommon things. Lichens are important, apparently, also flowers, fruits, depending on the season.
Lichens, okay.
Yeah. And this specific seasonal diet probably means They need a pretty big area to find enough food throughout the year.
Right, they need space to roam.
Exactly. For that one cross-border group we mentioned, in Pyama, the researchers estimated their home range was, well, quite large, between about 51 and 57 square kilometers.
57 square kilometers, that's a huge area for one group.
It is. And that need for a large territory makes them really vulnerable if their habitat gets chopped up or lost.
Which, sadly, brings us to the threats. And it sounds like, well, there's a whole list. Habitat loss, degradation, that's a big one.
Oh, definitely. A major issue. Primarily driven by logging, often mechanized and often illegal logging.
And Myanmar's deforestation rates have been high, haven't they?
Alarmingly high, yes. Plus, you've got forests being converted for agriculture, for plantations. It all eats away at their home.
And it's not just about losing the trees, is it? There's direct hunting, too.
Historically, yes. A very serious threat. And like we said, that sneezing habit, it unfortunately made them easier targets in the rain. Now, there's evidence that intentional hunting for the monkeys has decreased in some places. Conservation awareness seems to be helping there.
That's good.
But they still get caught accidentally in traps set for other animals, like bears, and, opportunistic shooting still happens.
And the threats don't stop there, do they? I read about the illegal wildlife trade.
Yes, that's another dark shadow. Reports of monkey parts, skulls, skins, bones turning up in wildlife markets, particularly in China, possibly for traditional medicine.
Oh, gosh.
And there have even been reports of parts being sold to workers at, like, logging camps or construction sites in the area.
It's just pressure from all sides. What about bigger development projects, dams and things?
Well, that's a looming threat too. Some really big hydropower projects like the Myanmar Dam are on hold for now.
Okay.
But the potential is still there. And the infrastructure that comes with dams roads, mainly that can open up forests that were hard to reach before.
Making it easier for loggers and hunters.
Exactly. And even smaller dams on tributaries can cause problems, like displacing local people who might then have to move into monkey habitat to survive.
It's a complex web. And you've got mining activities nearby too, right, on the Myanmar side?
Yes, mining adds another pressure. And then there are transboundary forest fires, often starting in Myanmar, that have damaged habitat on both sides.
It feels relentless. And on top of all that, there's the political situation. Kachin State has had conflict.
Ongoing political instability. Civil conflict makes everything harder. Can directly disrupt conservation work on the ground, stop patrols, things like that.
Right.
And sadly, it can sometimes lead to an increase in hunting, either for food or for trade, when other options disappear.
And underlying all this, I guess, are weaker environmental protections, maybe less funding for conservation than is needed.
That's definitely a factor. Insufficient protected areas, limited resources, both technical know-how and just plain funding. They definitely hinder effective conservation efforts in the region.
Okay, so given this onslaught of challenges, is there actually hope? Are things being done?
Yes. Fortunately, yes. It's not all bleak. There have been some really positive steps, especially with community engagement.
How so?
Well, efforts to raise awareness among local communities seem to be having a real impact. As we said, intentional hunting has reportedly decreased.
That's huge.
It is. And you see the establishment of village conservation groups, people taking ownership. That's a very positive sign.
That really is inspiring. What about, formal protection? Parks and reserves?
Also happening, there's the proposal and ongoing development of Imawbum National Park in Myanmar.
Okay.
That's specifically designed to cover a big chunk of the monkey's territory, give it permanent protection. And importantly, the aim is to do this with the free and prior consent of the local communities living there.
That's crucial.
Absolutely. And then on the China side, you have the existing Gaoligongshan Mountain Natural Reserve, which protects the population there.
And I know there are NGOs involved too, right? Doing work on the ground.
Yes, organizations like Shanshui Conservation Center and Fauna and Flora International FFI, they're doing vital work.
What kind of work?
Supporting community patrols, monitoring the monkeys, running awareness campaigns, helping develop sustainable livelihoods so people don't need to rely on hunting or logging.
Right.
Exactly. And funding bodies like the Critical Ecosystem Partnership Fund, CEPF, have been important in building up that local capacity, training local researchers and conservationists.
That capacity building is key for the long term.
Definitely. And there's also this growing understanding that China and Myanmar need to work together on this cross-border collaboration.
What would that look like?
Things like joint patrols along the border, better coordinated law enforcement against illegal logging or poaching, joint surveys to find out more about populations we aren't sure about yet.
Makes sense, since the monkeys don't recognize the border.
Precisely. And let's not forget that potentially growing cross-border group we talked about. That discovery offers a really significant spark of hope.
Yeah, that was good news. So, okay, lots of positive efforts, reasons for, well, cautious optimism maybe, but still hurdles to overcome.
Exactly. Cautious optimism is probably the right phrase. The illegal activities, particularly on the Myanmar side, they haven't stopped. That's a serious, ongoing concern.
And the dams, still uncertain. Still uncertain. Their future could have major impacts. And consistent funding, reliable support for those researchers and conservationists working in Myanmar, that's absolutely vital. It can't be stopped.
It needs to be sustained.
Yes. Plus, there are still things we just don't know. Gaps in our knowledge about their detailed behavior, how they move across the landscape, the finer points of their population dynamics. We need more research.
Okay.
And strengthening the actual laws and policies for protecting biodiversity and managing protected areas in Myanmar is also key. And making sure conservation isn't just seen as separate, but is integrated into, wider development plans and international cooperation.
Right. It needs to be part of the bigger picture.
Totally.
Okay. So, to sort of wrap this up, this deep dive really shows us a pretty incredible monkey discovered so recently, already facing this mountain of pressure, caught between habitat loss, hunting, development, instability, in a region that's amazingly biodiverse, but also incredibly challenging.
But the conservation work, it is happening. It is showing promise, especially that community involvement. But its long-term survival really hangs on continued collaborative support.
Yeah, and for me, the real aha moment, maybe, is seeing that resilience, finding that larger cross-border group possibly growing, and seeing the definite impact of engaging local people. The fact that this incredibly elusive animal, facing such huge odds, is actually showing signs of recovery in places. It just hammers home how crucial that dedicated on-the-ground conservation work is.
It really does. It really makes you think, doesn't it? When you consider that whole tangle of environment, economics, politics in that region, what kind of, innovative solutions could really secure the future? Not just for this monkey, but for all the amazing biodiversity there. And, how can international support be channeled most effectively to really empower those local conservation heroes who are making the difference right there?
Big questions.
Definitely something to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.